I remember the exact moment I realized something was wrong with me. Nothing dramatic, nothing cinematic, just an ordinary day. I had done everything right, worked hard, met deadlines, avoided conflict, tried to be understanding, and still I felt invisible. People talked over me. My decisions were questioned. My explanations never seemed enough. And the more I tried to justify myself, the weaker I looked. At first, I thought the problem was the world. Then I thought it was poor social skills. Then I blamed bad luck. None of that fixed anything. What finally changed things was a painful realization. I had no solid internal axis. Without noticing, I was living in reaction mode, reacting to people, to opinions, to emotions, and that comes at a cost. When you don't have a clear inner direction, any wind can push you, any criticism can shake you, any offense can control you. That's when I stumbled into Stoicism, not as a beautiful philosophy, but as a mental survival tool. The first thing that hit me wasn't an inspirational quote. It was a brutal idea. If something external controls your peace, you are not free. That changed everything. I started to see that most of my suffering didn't come from events themselves, but from the meaning I assigned to them. A comment at work wasn't an attack, I turned it into one. Criticism wasn't rejection, I turned it into humiliation. A mistake wasn't a lesson, I turned it into identity. And every time I reacted automatically, I gave away power. So I started small. Instead of replying immediately, I paused. Instead of over-explaining, I spoke less. Instead of trying to be understood, I focused on being solid. The first major shift was defining a firm purpose, not a vague goal, not being happy, not being successful. Principles. What I tolerate, what I don't negotiate. The kind of man I chose to be, even when no one is watching. Once that became clear, something interesting happened. The problems didn't disappear. People didn't become nicer. Life didn't get easier. But I became steadier. Criticism hurt less. Offenses lost weight. Other people's opinions stopped defining me. I realized emotional discipline isn't coldness, it's command. And command starts in the mind. I began treating my mind like protected territory. Not everything gets in. Not everyone gets access. Not every emotion deserves a response. That meant cutting noise, reducing pointless consumption, stopping arguments with people who don't want to understand, stopping explanations that don't require approval. And yes, that bothers people. When you stop reacting, some people feel exposed. When you stop justifying yourself, they lose leverage. That's not your problem. Another lesson I had to learn was solitude. When you stop chasing approval, you lose company. Not everyone is comfortable around someone who doesn't react. At first, that stings. Later, it frees you. I became more selective with where I invested energy. Shorter conversations. Fewer explanations. Less exposure. Privacy became strategy. The less people know about you, the less control they have. Mystery isn't manipulation. It's self-protection. I also had to face something uncomfortable. I used chaos as an excuse. I told myself I was too busy to train my mind, that the world was too unfair to stay disciplined. Comfortable lie. Discipline doesn't depend on ideal conditions. It's built precisely in discomfort. I started treating my routine like training. Sleep, by body, silence, reading. Nothing heroic, nothing performative. Slowly, my identity stopped being reaction and became posture. Another major shift was understanding that respect doesn't come from being agreeable. It comes from being predictable in your principles. People began to know what to expect from me, not because I explained myself, but because I maintained consistency, same tone, same posture, same firmness. When you constantly change to please, no one trusts you. When you stay consistent, even quietly, you project presence. I also had to accept that not all discomfort needs to be resolved. Some tension should exist. Some disagreements don't need closure. I used to chase harmony. Now I value clarity. Forced harmony is expensive. Clarity sustains. Another hard truth: you can't reason with people emotionally invested in chaos. Arguing with them only drains you. So I stopped. No dramatic cutoffs. No confrontations. Just reduced access. Energy is finite. A disciplined man protects what's finite. Over time, I noticed something interesting. The less I talked about myself, the more people projected onto me. Some good, some not. That's fine. It's not your job to manage other people's narratives. It's your job to maintain internal coherence. Another quiet change was how I made decisions. I used to ask too much, seeking validation disguised as advice. Now I decide, and then I inform. That didn't make me arrogant. It made me accountable. Decision without responsibility is impulse. Decision with responsibility is authority. I also let go of the fantasy of being understood by everyone. That never happens. Trying is an emotional trap. Being misunderstood is part of the path. Staying firm anyway is maturity. Something few people say. Stoicism doesn't erase emotion. It removes emotion's control. I still feel anger, fear, frustration. The difference is they don't decide for me. I observe. I process. Then I act. That pause between stimulus and response changed my life. That's where power lives. Over time, my presence shifted. Not because I spoke louder, but because I needed fewer words. Not because I demanded respect, but because I didn't beg for it. Respect is a byproduct of visible self-control. Today, when something goes wrong, I don't rush to explain. I correct it. When someone provokes, I assess. Most of the time, I ignore it. When I make a mistake, I own it. No drama, no speech. That unsettles people who rely on emotional reactions. But clarity always outlasts chaos. If Stoicism taught me one thing, it's this: you don't control the world. You control yourself. And when that happens, the world loses its grip on you. That's real freedom. There was another shift that took longer to notice. I stopped needing to be right. Before, being right felt like survival. If I wasn't right, I felt small. If someone disagreed, I felt threatened. That constant need to prove myself kept my nervous system on edge. Stoicism forced a different question. Is being right actually serving me, or just feeding my ego? Once I let that go, conversations changed. I listened more. I spoke less. And when I spoke, it carried more weight. Not because I argued better, but because I wasn't trying to win. I also learned to sit with discomfort without naming it as a problem. Silence in a room, awkward pauses, unanswered messages, delayed outcomes. None of these require immediate action. They only feel urgent when you're addicted to control. The ability to stay calm while nothing happens is a form of strength most people never develop. Another hard lesson: not every feeling needs to be expressed. Modern culture teaches the opposite. Let it out. Say how you feel. Be authentic. But unfiltered emotion isn't authenticity, it's exposure. I learned to feel fully internally, without externalizing everything. That alone restored a level of dignity I didn't know I had lost. There was also a moment when I realized how much of my identity was built around struggle. I used pressure as proof of worth, stress as evidence of importance. When things were calm, I felt uneasy, like I was missing something. Stoicism taught me that peace doesn't mean stagnation. It means alignment. If your life is always chaotic, it's not depth, it's misdirection. I began to simplify. Fewer commitments, clearer priorities, less multitasking. Depth replaced urgency. Another internal shift was learning to delay gratification without resentment, not as punishment, but as training. Saying no when it would feel good to say yes, waiting when impulsive action would feel powerful. Each delay strengthened my sense of control. I wasn't depriving myself. I was choosing timing. And timing is power. I also stopped narrating my progress to others. No announcements. No previews. No need for encouragement. Progress done in silence compounds faster. When no one knows what you're building, no one interferes. This changed how I worked, trained, and planned. Momentum without commentary. Another layer was learning to accept responsibility without self-flagellation. Before, mistakes triggered shame spirals. I either defended myself or crushed myself. Neither helped. Now I treat errors clinically. What happened? Why it happened? What changes? No identity attached. Responsibility without drama is clarity. I also noticed how differently time feels. When you're not emotionally reactive, days slow down, decisions sharpen, energy stabilizes. You stop living in peaks and crashes and start operating in range. That consistency quietly changes everything. One of the deepest realizations came later. Most people aren't against you. They're absorbed in themselves. Once I truly understood that, rejection lost its sting. Indifference from others stopped feeling personal. Criticism stopped feeling fatal. You don't need to matter to everyone. You need to matter to yourself. Another principle I live by now is this: never explain yourself to people who already decided who you are. Explanations don't change closed minds. They only drain open ones. Silence protects energy better than argument ever will. I also stopped expecting fairness from life. That expectation creates bitterness. Life isn't fair. It's responsive. It responds to clarity, discipline, and consistency, not complaints. Once I dropped the fairness narrative, I gained adaptability. And adaptability beats entitlement every time. At some point, I realized my emotional baseline had shifted. I wasn't numb. I wasn't detached. I was grounded. Things that used to shake me now registered as information, useful or not, act or ignore, simple. And finally, I stopped measuring growth by how I felt. and started measuring it by how I behaved under pressure. Calm response, delayed reaction, clear boundary, quiet follow-through. That's growth. Stoicism didn't make my life impressive. It made it stable. And stability gives you something rare. Room to think. Room to choose. Room to move without panic. At this point, I don't seek peace as an emotion. I treat it as a byproduct. When your actions align with your principles, peace shows up on its own. And when it does, nothing external can take it from you. That's the level of freedom I was looking for. Even before I knew how to name it, another realization came quietly, without drama. I stopped chasing intensity. For a long time, I mistook intensity for meaning. Strong emotions felt like proof I was alive, involved, committed. But intensity is unstable. It burns fast and leaves nothing behind. Stoicism taught me to value depth over intensity, consistency over excitement. A calm day, handled well, started to feel like a victory. Not boring. Efficient. I also learned to stop filling every gap. Gaps in conversation. Gaps in plans. Gaps in certainty. Before, gaps made me anxious. Now I let them exist. Not everything needs resolution. Some things need space. Silence stopped feeling like absence and started feeling like control. Another shift was how I handled praise. Criticism used to hurt too much. Praise used to matter too much. Both had leverage over me. So I treated them the same way. Information, nothing more. Praise doesn't make me better. Criticism doesn't make me worse. My standards don't move based on applause. That internal reference point changed everything. I also stopped narrating my suffering. No venting loops. No constant processing out loud. Not because I was suppressing emotion, but because I stopped feeding it. Pain shrinks when it's handled quietly. It grows when it's rehearsed. This alone reduced mental noise more than any technique. Another layer was learning to wait without anxiety. Waiting for outcomes. Waiting for responses. Waiting for clarity. I realized impatience wasn't urgency. It was fear wearing a schedule. When you trust your ability to handle whatever comes, waiting stops feeling threatening. Time becomes neutral again. I also became more selective with empathy. Not everyone deserves emotional access. Some people drain not because they're evil, but because they're unregulated. Stoicism taught me compassion without absorption. I can understand someone without carrying their chaos. That boundary preserved energy and respect. Then came a deeper acceptance. Some versions of me had to die. The over-explainer, the peacekeeper, the one who needed to be liked. Letting them go felt uncomfortable, almost like betrayal. But growth always feels like loss at first. What replaced them was quieter, less performative, more grounded. And finally, I stopped asking life to feel good. I asked it to make sense. Meaning outlasts comfort. Structure outlasts pleasure. When your days are aligned, you don't need constant emotional highs. You wake up steady. You move deliberately. You sleep clean. That's when I understood something clearly. Stoicism didn't give me answers. It gave me posture. A way to stand when nothing is certain. A way to move without panic. A way to live without begging the world to cooperate. And once you have that posture, you don't need much else. Not approval. not validation, not permission, just clarity, and the discipline to protect it. One of the last adjustments was learning to trust restraint. For a long time, I believed action was always better than inaction, that doing something, anything, was proof of strength. But I noticed how many problems solved themselves when I didn't interfere emotionally. Some conflicts collapse without fuel. Some misunderstandings fade without explanation. Some power struggles die when there's no opponent. Restraint stopped feeling passive and started feeling strategic. Another shift came in how I dealt with regret. I used to replay decisions endlessly. What I should have said, what I should have done differently. That mental looping created fatigue, not wisdom. Stoicism reframed regret as data, not punishment. Once a lesson is extracted, repetition is self-harm. I learned to close the file mentally and move forward clean. That alone freed enormous mental bandwidth. I also became comfortable with being underestimated. Before, that triggered insecurity. Now it feels like advantage. When expectations are low, pressure disappears. You can move quietly. You can observe longer. You can act precisely. Underestimation creates room, and room is where leverage lives. Another realization was about legacy, not in a grand sense, but in daily behavior. Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's how you behave when no one is watching, and nothing is at stake. I stopped asking, "How does this look?" and started asking, "Does this align?" Alignment replaced image. That brought consistency I never had before. And finally, I accepted something simple and final. No one is coming to stabilize your inner world. No relationship, no achievement, no recognition. That responsibility is solitary. Once I accepted that fully, I stopped resenting life for not feeling easier.